and welcome to the Bike Show and welcome to Mpumalanga. On the programme this week, we're going to be taking a look back at last weekend's BMW GS Eco event. We'll also be checking in with Harry and seeing what he's been up to in terms of his training. He's trying to transform himself from a complete novice to a fully fledged racer, and all in just a couple of months. And we're going to introduce a new bike to our long-term test fleet. But first, to the reason that we're up here in Mpumalanga. And that reason is a new Italian naked sporty bike. This is MV Agusta's 1090 Brutale Corsa. It's the most expensive naked sport bike that they make. Now, the reason I'm up here in Mpumalanga is you might remember a couple of weeks ago we were up here for Bike of the Year, and 6 of the 9 finalists on that test were sporty naked bikes. So I've ridden a lot of this bike's natural competitors on these very roads. So it's going to provide an ideal comparison, and I'll be able to tell you exactly where the MV stacks up with what have been the 3 best bikes of 2014. As with any bike from MV, this Corsa is a stunning looking piece of kit. From a distance or in close-up and from any angle, the Corsa is undoubtedly one of the prettiest naked bikes on the market. The overall shape of the bike is beautifully proportioned, the rear end is super tidy with some cleverly hidden pillion handles, and the exclusive Corsa paintwork looks and feels exceedingly expensive. Under the very beautiful skin, this bike is essentially the same model as the rest of the Brutale range, but with a more highly tuned engine nestled in a frame with MV's signature mix of castings and trellis pipework. Top of the range Öhlins forks and an equally trick Sachs rear shock take care of the bouncy bits, and a set of Brembo's finest monoblock calipers sort out the braking. As you can see from our brain bucket specs, this is a powerful bike, pumping out the kind of horsepower you'd expect on a fully fledged superbike. The figures are certainly impressive, but how do they translate to the road? The first thing that grabs my attention is the suspension. It's much softer than you'd expect, which makes it a lovely setup for the road. When you're really cracking on though, the rear is perhaps a touch too soft and can make the Corsa a little understeery on some of the corner exits. That's not a problem though. If you want to ride harder or maybe take in a track day, the infinitely adjustable forks and shock mean that you can easily set the bike up for the kind of riding you'll be doing. The great thing about naked sport bikes is that the upright riding position and high handlebar result not only in increased comfort, they also make it easier to hustle the bike through the twisties. And when you get the Corsa up to speed, like all naked bikes, the lack of wind protection means you actually feel like you're really shifting. The sensation of riding is that bit more real when you're occasionally battered by gale force winds, and that to me is a very good thing. So what is it then that sets the Corsa apart from the cheaper Brutales? Well, we've mentioned the special paint. We've touched on the top-of-the-range suspension and brakes, but there's also the lightweight wheels that come from the F4RR Superbike. And in terms of the smaller details, the list of extras seems to go on forever. A carbon hugger and front mudguard, lovely billet pieces for everything from brake and clutch reservoirs to the foot pegs and brake levers. There's a dedicated tank guard, a redesigned number plate holder, and a general level of fit and finish that makes you feel the bike is worth every cent of its rather steep asking price. And no one piece shows off the handcrafted side of this bike more than the hand-stitched leather seat that's as comfortable as it is good-looking. Back on the road, and I'm loving the Brutale. With a 4-cylinder engine, its direct competitors are the likes of BMW's S1000R and the Japanese naked bikes. It measures up, no doubt, with 2 riding modes, 8-way adjustable traction control and ABS that can be put in race mode or turned off completely. It has the necessary safety features for when you want to ride just a bit more sensibly. The Brutale can't hope to match the torquey output of the big twins, but with such a smooth, powerful 4-pot motor, it has a lot more civility than they can muster, but without sacrificing outright performance. So, 259,900 rand. It's certainly an expensive bike. In fact, it's MV Agusta's most expensive naked bike. Is it worth the money, though? That's the burning question. And as always, it's very difficult to answer. In fact, MV Agusta have made it more difficult themselves because in this range of Brutales, there are 3 other slightly more basic models, and they offer pretty much the same thing, but for a lot less money. At the bottom of the range, so to speak, you've got the basic Brutale, and that goes for 149. At 179, you've got the R version with a few more fancy bits and pieces. Then you've got the RR, that's 199. Now, that comes with the same engine as this. It gets a hop up in power, 158 from 144, makes a bit less torque. So the question is the basic one, the pricing-wise, it's only about half the bike that this is, so is it half the bike dynamically? Well, the answer is no, of course not. Then that brings into question, is this any value at all? Well, as I've shown you, it's got all the trick bits and pieces you could ever possibly wish for, so it boils down, as always, to the size of your bank balance. If it's pretty big and it can take a 260,000 rand hit, you've got to have the expensive one, haven't you?
Well, that does look an exceedingly beautiful bike, and you obviously liked it, but I've got a feeling you're holding out on me here. There's something you're not telling us.
Yeah, you're right, Harry. It's possibly the most beautiful naked bike there is. I know we've had a lot of good ones, haven't we? The Ducati Monster and the KTM recently. They are fantastic-looking things, but for me, the MV Agusta 1090 has got it. But you're also right. I am kind of in two minds. I'm holding back. Look, I thought it was maybe the most expensive naked bike there is in the world, but I suddenly remembered there's a couple of 400,000 rand motors. But it's still expensive, isn't it?
It makes it a bargain then, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this is the problem. MV Agusta's own range of 1090 Brutales goes right down to the basic one, like I said, which doesn't even have a name after it. It's not a 1090R or anything. And that costs 149,000 rand. So it's 110,000 rand cheaper.
And is the Corsa 110 rand better? 110,000 rand, sorry, better?
No, that's the problem. Look, you can look at all the bits and pieces, the fancy bits and pieces, the extra suspension, the top-line wheels. Look, if you try to put all those on the base model, there's no doubt that it would cost more than 260,000 rand. If you tried to do it yourself.
Yeah, OK.
So in that respect, yes, it's a bargain, but there's one thing that really bugs me. I used to run a 1090 just over a year ago, 2 years ago, which was the base model, and I preferred it. And it comes down to engines. The 1090 base and the 1090R use one tuned version of that 1090 motor, and the RR and the Corsa use another one. Now, the base model makes 144 horsepower. The one I've just tested, the Corsa, makes 158 horsepower. Now, that's a useful gain, isn't it? But
there's always a but.
There's always a but. The standard base model makes 112 newton meters of torque. The racy 158 horsepower one makes 100 newton meters of torque. So they've lost 10-11% of its torque. And for me, torquey big motors are what naked bikes are about. Now, I know this isn't an absolutely definitive explanation of how that feels, but the base model, I used to be able to wheelie with just a dip of the clutch in second gear. No matter how hard I tried with this newer version, that lack of torque means I could only wheelie it in first gear and then change gears after that. So
all the power's up at the top end on the Corsa and the RR.
Very top endy. And there's one thing that might irritate a few people about the Brutales, is the fact that it's incredibly low geared. Incredible. So even cruising on the motorway at 130, 140, oh, damn, the thing is whining hard, you know, it's really high revs. Brilliant for sports riding, you know, it's punchy, it's mad, it's frenetic, but a little bit irritating if you want to go for a relaxing cruise. And with a massive fuel tank and brilliant comfort, the bike is capable of doing that.
So it's a lovely thing, it's beautiful to look at, monstrously expensive, not really worth it.
Oh, I think that's a bit hard. I think it is worth it. I think it is worth it, but if it was me, I'd go for the base model, better engine, and then you've got a lot of money left and put some trinkets on it that particularly suit you.
Well, there you have it. A bit of a controversial summary there by Mr. Durrans, but that's what we expect. Join us after the break, where I'll be throwing a BMW GS Adventure at the scenery again.